ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Making headlines on First at 9. Assurance of normalcy. State of emergency prevalent in the country for the last 12 days has been lifted.
These international forces want to make use of these internal clashes to control countries like ours.
Guidance. President Maithripala Sirisena briefs the newly elected UPFA local authority member how to serve the masses. Data discrepancies. Former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank says the withdrawal of the GDP report questions Sri Lanka's data integrity.
They had posted the economic data there, then immediately after that they have withdrawn it, which is again a huge blow to Sri Lanka's data integrity, reputation of the Department of Census and Statistics.
Russians take to the polls. Vladimir Putin poised to be re-elected as Russia sees far higher voter turnout than 2012 election. Neighbours clash. Bangladesh face India in the Nidhas Trophy decider. A very good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. The nationwide state of emergency that was in effect for almost 2 weeks in the country was lifted at midnight yesterday. President Maithripala Sirisena had signed the relevant Gazette notification to lift the state of emergency with immediate effect. However, when looking at the impact of the 12-day-long state of emergency, analysts from various sectors say that this period not only painted a dark picture over Sri Lankan politics, but also on other sectors which play pivotal roles in the development of the nation. Following unfortunate developments in Kandy that led to an unrest in several areas of the district, the Sri Lankan government took measures to promulgate a nationwide state of emergency for 10 days on the 6th of March. With the announcement of the state of emergency, all major international media networks continuously reported on the political situation in Sri Lanka. Al Jazeera reported that communal violence between the majority community Sinhalese and the minority community Muslims led to the government's decision to impose the state of emergency. BBC said Sri Lanka declared a state of emergency after several attacks against mosques and Muslim-owned businesses. CNN claimed concerns about Buddhist radicalism being on the rise in Sri Lanka, where a monk-led Buddhist nationalist movement has been blamed for drumming up deadly mob violence against minority Muslim groups. Reuters also claimed that tensions has been growing between the two communities in Sri Lanka over the past year, with some hardline Buddhist groups accusing Muslims of forcing people to convert to Islam and vandalizing Buddhist archaeological sites. Reporting on the unrest, The Guardian meanwhile said tensions between Muslims who make up about 10% of the population and the majority Sinhala Buddhist community have existed for decades but have become more acute since the end of the civil war. Meanwhile, the government took further measures to control the situation, such as imposing a curfew for the Kandy administrative district and a nationwide temporary ban on the usage of social media platforms. Between the 4th of March and the 12th of March, the police had arrested 280 individuals with regard to incidents of violent behavior and vandalization. Among the arrested were 10 persons accused of carrying out extremist social media campaigns in the country. Following 12 days of the state of emergency, the President's Media Division announced that Maithripala Sirisena signed the Special Gazette Notification 2065/50, lifting the state of emergency with immediate effect from midnight yesterday. This decision was taken after monitoring the post-unrest situation in Kandy for the past few days. As the state of emergency ends, we spoke to analysts from different sectors to find out their views on recent developments.
As an activist committed to freedom of expression and free speech, I welcome the ending of the emergency regulations. Among the emergency regulations proclaimed on 6th of March was a provision that curtailed freedom of expression. The vagueness of that language caused concern. For example, both covering digital media and social media as well as other kinds of spaces, there was this provision saying any information or image or message which is likely to cause public alarm. Perfectly legitimate conversations or expressions of opinion can sometimes cause public alarm. Public alarm needs to be defined, otherwise it can be misused, it can be abused to crack down on legitimate criticism of the government.
The international reactions, I mean the reaction by the powerful countries and the corporate media and organizations under their control over recent clashes has mostly been negative and distortion of facts. For example, Alan Keenan of International Crisis Group has called these clashes as a fight between especially Buddhists and Muslims. But it is not so. Even the sensible Muslim politicians in Sri Lanka have never called these clashes as anti-Muslim by Buddhists. Yes, there were some Buddhists who were involved in these clashes, but not the entire Buddhist community of this country. These international forces want to make use of these internal clashes to control countries like ours. What we need to do is not to fish in troubled waters, but to get together all communities, all political parties to address basic issues that lead to such clashes.
President Maithripala Sirisena states that maintaining a good character will lead to a long political career. He made this comment at a meeting held with the candidates from the United People's Freedom Party who were elected through the recent local authorities election.
Many, including the UPFA candidates elected through the recent local authorities election, parliamentarians and the ministers of SLFP participated in the meeting presided over by President Maithripala Sirisena.
You have a good political future if you maintain a good character. I recommend that you plan your day-to-day schedules. You should not arrange other work when you have council meetings. Your speeches should be words of value and should contain a political meaning. We will provide you the money needed for development. If you use the money appropriately, we can increase the allocated amount step by step. Sometimes we will have to reduce the money allocated or entirely deduct if any complaint is filed against corruptions or irregularities.
Various ministers expressed their views following the meeting.
Councillors of the local authorities met with the President and vowed to proceed within the local authorities free of corruption. We clearly advised them not to work as contractors but councillors. Our efforts are to get administration powers. We have not yet decided to unite with any other party. If we can get the positions of the chairman, we have advised them accordingly. The SLFP decided to establish power with any group that agrees to hand the chairman position to the SLFP. There are many such requests from both sides.
Meanwhile, Minister of Rural Economic Affairs P. Harrison revealed plans of the UNP on uniting with the Sri Lanka Freedom Party in order to establish power in the local authorities.
The President had a discussion and had apparently said that, if that is so, we will hold discussions with them. We will be able to establish 100 to 125 local authorities in addition to the local authorities that was won by the UNP together with the SLFP and other minor parties as well as independent parties.
UPFA candidates who contested for the Kandy Municipal Council at the recent local authorities election have said that party regulations have been violated while nominating 3 members through the additional list. They made these remarks at a media briefing held in Kandy yesterday.
The organisers have still not made a proper review on the recent local authorities election. With the 41 UPFA candidates who contested for the Kandy Municipal Council, we expected the 3 most suitable candidates to be nominated for the Kandy Municipal Council. Unfortunately, they have nominated candidates who were in the additional list but who did not contest in the election at all. This is a violation of the party's rules and regulations. We've complained about this to Ministers Duminda Dissanayake, Mahinda Amaraweera and Faisal Mustafa. We asked the President to conduct an investigation into the matter and nominate the most suitable candidates for the Kandy Municipal Council.
Meanwhile, UNP candidates who contested for the Aranayaka Provincial Council engaged in a protest today demanding the removal of current UNP organizer for Provincial Council, Nimal Jayasinghe, from his post. The protesters claimed that there were unfair acts being committed while nominating the 6 members for the Provincial Council through the additional list.
Both the government and opposition parliamentarians expressed their views over the proposed no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
I believe majority of the 225 MPs are supportive of bringing in a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister and therefore should be removed from his post. If they are to bring a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister, SP Disanayake, who lost and was brought back in and was given a minister position because he was pitied, should have 10 no-confidence motions against him. The UNP are divided and there is many conflicts within the party. With discussions that are taking place between the MPs of the UNP, it can be said that there are 18 of those who are supportive of a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister. There is no need of bringing in a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister because there has been no effect on the people's mandate. However, there should be a change in the government. Signatures were received from ministers, state ministers and MPs. There are 35 signatures from MPs from joint opposition. There are those who are overseas and we will get signatures from them as soon as they come back. We will also receive signatures by a group of ministers and MPs from the SLFP. Only 40 have placed their signatures. Only their faction has placed their signatures, not anybody else. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party has not engaged in any discussions pertaining to the no-confidence motion so far.
The 4th batch of devotees who won the privilege to go on the Dambadiva pilgrimage visited the city of Vaishali after they paid homage to the Vihara Pabbata. The devotees paid homage to the city of Vaishali where the Lord Buddha chanted the Ratana Sutra to overcome the persistent drought which was prevalent in the city. The devotees then proceeded to pay homage to Kusinara located in the town of Kushnagar. The devotees were also able to observe the remaining sculpture art in the stupa built by the king of Lichvi. The devotees are scheduled to travel to Nepal tomorrow after paying homage to the sacred places located in the town of Kushnagar. The 5th phase of the Dambadiva Vandana program organized by FM Derana has now been initiated. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
The medical staff at the Divisional Hospital of Kottagala refrained from duties as they engaged in a protest this morning, inconveniencing many who came to the hospital seeking treatment. The protest was launched against the failure to arrest a former member of the Kottagala Pradesha Sabha and a group of individuals who threatened staff to transfer a man to another hospital who was brought to the hospital following a road accident. Although the former Chief Minister of Sabaragama Province and its Minister of Health Mahipala Herath opened a newly constructed building equipped with a CT scanner machine at the Ambulipitiya District General Hospital on the 23rd of September 2017, it has come to attention that it is not being used. Due to this, people have been compelled to pay large amounts of money to visit hospitals coming under the purview of the Ratnapura General Hospital in order to gain access to a CT scanner. On the 3rd of January, it was reported that the principal of the Badula Tamil Girls' School was made to kneel down by the Uva Chief Minister Chamara Sampath Dasanayake for allegedly not enrolling a student he recommended into the school. As investigations continue into the incident, the said principal, at a press conference organized by the Ceylon Teachers Union, said that she has been receiving death threats during the past few days. The collective of residents victimized by the Salawa explosion says that steps will be taken to file a court case for compensation due to the government's failure to solve their issues. This was stated at a media briefing organized by the representatives of the resident collectives.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Former Deputy Governor of Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, says that the withdrawal of the report of the gross domestic product for 2017 and its 4th quarter compiled by the Department of Census and Statistics questions the integrity of Sri Lanka's data. The report, which was published this Friday on its website, was taken down shortly after citing discrepancies in this data. Both reports showed a slowdown in growth of the GDP.
Data released by the Department of Census and Statistics on the 16th of March showed a 3.1% expansion in the economy last year, decelerating from 4.4% in the previous year. Meanwhile, fourth quarter statistics showed growth slowing to 1.4% year-on-year from 3.74% in the third quarter. However, this data was immediately withdrawn by the department shortly after it was published. When other Derana contacted the Director General of the Department of Census and Statistics, Dr. A.J. Satrasinghe, on the reason as to why such a decision was taken, he stated that steps were taken to recalculate statistics received by 250 institutions owing to discrepancies. He added that the department was to officially issue the data on the 15th of this month. However, due to the delay of submission of statistics by several institutions, there was a rush in the compilation of data. It was in this backdrop that a decision was reached to publish the report on the following day. He added that the finalized data will be republished in the week ahead. According to the IMF, real GDP growth is projected to rise to 4.5% in 2018 and added that Sri Lanka's economy remains vulnerable to adverse shocks due to its large public debt and low external buffers. Furthermore, based on the global ranking of the IMF for 2017, Sri Lanka was ranked 90th out of 192 states with a GDP of 3.5%. Therefore, the attractiveness of Sri Lanka as an investment destination would remain with a negative undertone as highlighted in Moody's investment outlook. Given this backdrop, will Sri Lanka be able to achieve its economic growth of 5% to 5.5% as forecast by the central bank this year? We spoke to economists on the withdrawal of GDP statistics and what can be expected from Sri Lanka's GDP for 2017.
Historically, Sri Lanka has witnessed a 4.5% GDP growth over the last 60 years. However, this trend changed as a result of the new government coming in with a new economic model which was primarily based on consumption-led GDP growth. Now, that particular model in the last 3 years has come to some difficulty. In fact, over the last 2 years and this year, again, we have seen that GDP growth rate has declined from on a year-to-year basis. On an average basis also, it has come down to about 4.2% for the last 3 years, which is not really a healthy sign for the economy. There are the three subsectors of GDP which are seeing severe contractions as a result of this particular policy framework being enacted. I think we would definitely see 2017 GDP come below expectations, reaching at around 3.5%, and that itself could mean that in 2018 we would also see a similar trend continue, and we would not expect GDP to be beyond 4%.
Meanwhile, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank says that the withdrawal of data by the Department of Census and Statistics is a blow to Sri Lanka's data integrity and reputation.
It appears that the census and statistics had been forced by people in power to withdraw that particular press release. Sri Lanka is a signatory to the global standards of compiling these economic growth data, which is known as the Special Data Dissemination Standards prescribed by the International Monetary Fund. We have to compile our data in accordance with those standards in order to maintain the integrity of our data systems. Now, in terms of the advance release calendar which Census and Statistics had issued through its website, the fourth quarter economic growth data had to be released by that department on the 15th of March 2018, which they did. But since they had posted the economic data there, then immediately after that they have withdrawn it, which is again a huge blow to Sri Lanka's data integrity, reputation of the Department of Census and Statistics, reputation of the people who man that particular organization, and the government who is in charge of the Census and Statistics Department. Till year 2006, Sri Lanka's economic growth data were compiled by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka as well, and those are the data that was used by the central bank to write its annual report. Then the question was raised that why should two government institutions do the same job, because those data, there was a wide disparity even those days. Central bank's economic growth rate was pretty much lower than the economic growth rate that had been compiled by the Census and Statistics, and that was not to the liking of the people in power at that time.
Minister of Special Assignment Dr. Sara Tamanugama says that there should be favourable taxation policies for sectors that see fast expansion. He made this remark at an event held in Colombo yesterday.
If you look at the annual expenditure of state revenue, you will see that we are always rewarding these people. When you think of bonuses, negotiated salary increases, we are promoting inefficiency. On the other hand, we should shift to incentivizing, to helping people who are working very hard. Those who work hard, those who earn money, those who export our products must have a preferential scheme of taxation. We cannot promote idleness, promote inefficiency by linking it to unnecessary benefits.
He also added that the banking sector should gear itself to fund sectors which have the potential for growth.
Banking system which has to prioritize its lending. Today you would be surprised to know that the state banks are lending the money to the government. Now that may be good or may be bad, but the end result is that you are starving the banks of funding projects like yours. If we are raiding the funds of these banks, particularly the state banks, for these enterprises, year by year, we are curtailing the funds available for progress in the private sector. After all, you are not asking for billions, you are asking for middle range loans, then those must be accommodated on a priority basis because you will generate income. It's also necessary in the long term to invest in projects which will increase our wealth and bring more and more foreign exchange and other sources of wealth to this country.
Market analysts expect increased foreign participation in the market with institutional and high net worth individuals to adopt a wait-and-see approach. During the week, the All-Share Price Index and the S&P SL20 lost 0.64% and 0.5% respectively, whilst recording an average daily turnover of 1.2 billion rupees. We now have Amanda Lokugamage from First Capital Holdings with your weekly forecast.
We expect the market to move sideways during the coming week with high foreign activity levels. Index will continue to hover around the psychological support level of 6,500. Market participants, mainly institutional and high net worth individuals, are expected to adopt a wait-and-see approach ahead of the Fed rate announcement on the 21st. Foreign outflows are expected to ease off after the Fed rate announcement, and we expect activity to be dominated by undervalued blue chip counters.
Russians are voting in an election that is likely to return Vladimir Putin for a fourth term as president. Meanwhile, Russia's Central Election Commission secretary said that there was a cyber attack on the commission targeting its information center. The commission's website earlier came under distributed denial of services. Attack allegedly from 15 countries.
Russians began voting in a presidential election today set to give Vladimir Putin a commanding victory that could only be blemished if large numbers do not bother taking part because the result is so predictable. In the Russian capital, Moscow, polling stations opened at 5 a.m. GMT and voting across the vast country will run until polls close at the Kaliningrad region at 6 p.m. GMT. Opinion polls give Putin the support of around 70% or nearly 10 times the backing of his nearest challenger. Another term will take him to nearly a quarter century in power, a longevity among Kremlin leaders second only to Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. Many voters credit Putin with standing up for Russia's interests in a hostile outside world, even though the cost is confrontation with the West. Meanwhile, online news website Russia Today reported that Russia's Central Election Commission came under a cyber attack from allegedly 15 countries. However, a chairperson of the Central Election Commission, Ella Pamfilova, said that the state automated system, Vibery, cannot, however, be exposed to any cyber attacks since it's not connected to the global network. Meanwhile, the Commission also said that this election has seen a far higher turnout than the 2012 election.
Li Keqiang was endorsed as Chinese Premier this morning at the 6th plenary meeting of the first session of the 13th National People's Congress. Newly elected Chinese President Xi Jinping signed his first presidential decree to appoint Li as Premier during the session.
This weekend, China's rubber stamp parliament, the National People's Congress, appointed Wang Qishan as Vice President, ending an official retirement that lasted just 5 months. Wang's appointment was approved with 2,969 votes in favor and just 1 against. Premier Li Keqiang was also reappointed for a second term, ending speculation that he might step down. But his role is expected to be eclipsed by Wang's brief, which will carry significant strategic and economic influence, as well as the widely expected appointment tomorrow of Xi's economic advisor Liu He to a prominent financial post.
Let's now take a look at other news making news across the world.
At least 15 people were killed and scores injured in heavy rains and flooding in Kenya. The rains had pounded parts of the East African nation over 3 days, and a local newspaper reported that most of the flood victims died by drowning. Florida authorities found what they believe to be the last body from a deadly pedestrian bridge collapse earlier in the week. 6 people died, including 5 whose bodies were recovered yesterday as workers pulled out vehicles from the rubble. About 25,000 homes were without power today in Australia's northern city of Darwin after a tropical cyclone felled trees, cancelled flights and closed schools and delayed shipping. Residents of the capital of Australia's Northern Territory have been warned to boil their water as a precaution after tropical cyclone Marcus lashed the city with 130 km/h winds yesterday. The Chicago River ran green to celebrate St. Patrick's Day yesterday as musicians, politicians and revelers paraded through the streets of the Windy City. In Savannah, Georgia, one of the country's largest St. Patrick's Day celebrations, the United States Vice President and his family attended the parade, waving to crowds from a balcony at the town hall as the colorful parade made its way across downtown.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
India won the toss and chose to bowl first in the Nidhas Trophy final against Bangladesh at the R. Premadasa Stadium. Although Bangladesh kept losing wickets at regular intervals, Sabir Rahman's 50th ball got his team to a defendable total 166 for 8. With the target set at 167 to get India started off strong but lost 2 quick wickets in the likes of Shikhar Dhawan and Suresh Raina while they were on 32. India were on 67 for the loss of 2 wickets a short while ago. World number 1 Roger Federer survived the scare from unseeded Borna Coric to beat him 5-7, 6-4, 6-4 in the BNP Paribas Open yesterday. Federer will now play against Juan Martin Del Potro, who powered past Milos Raonic 6-2, 6-3.
Borna Coric came close to delivering a huge upset as he took the first set in California. Federer bounced back in the second, but the match was on its edge with the scores at 4-all in the decider. The Swiss maestro's skills, however, proved enough for him to win the second set. The Croatian was then put to the sword by the world number 1 in the third, dumping him out of the competition.
Federer. 2-1.
Meanwhile, in the women's category, Japan's Naomi Osaka made short work to win over world number 1 Simona Halep day before yesterday.
Game, set, match, Osaka. 2-1.
The unseeded 20-year-old raced to a 6-3, 6-0 semi-final victory to set up a final showdown against Daria Kasatkina.
Ireland smashed England on St. Patrick's Day to win the 3rd Grand Slam in their history in a thrilling fashion. After exhausting and thrilling 1.5 hours, the match ended on 24-15.
First half tries from Gary Ringrose, CJ Stander and Jacob Stockdale lit up a snowy Twickenham as Joe Schmidt's men opened up a 21-5 lead in the first half. Clinical with their chances, composed on an afternoon of immense pressure, Ireland were fully deserving of their trump. Even though the British showed some fine skills during the match, they were too little for victory.
18, that was 6 Nations of Ireland!
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Let's cross over to Manusha Jayatilaka at the Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Now your temperatures for tomorrow will vary between 20 to 34 degrees Celsius, and our viewers in most parts of the island will experience some dry weather conditions for the next few days, with rain forecasted only for the districts of Batticaloa, Ampara, Munragal and Hambantota. Tomorrow will be rather sunny for those who are in Colombo, Kandy, Jaffna and Trincomalee districts. But some misty conditions can be expected during the morning hours in most parts of the island. Well, that's it from your weather center tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Before we go tonight, we'd like to show how famous landmarks around the world were lit up in green last night to mark St. Patrick's Day. Some of the famous sites illuminated with green light, including the Great Wall of China, the Niagara Falls, Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, the Leaning Tower of Pisa and Rome's Colosseum in Italy. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.